Joining me now is Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan, Democrat of Virginia and parliamentarian of the Congressional Black Caucus. Thank you for being with us, Congresswoman. Starting with the president's war on Iran and Republicans in both chambers of Congress voting down war powers resolutions that would require Trump to seek congressional approval before escalating his war in the Middle East, Eastern country, which has led to 6 U.S. troops, along with thousands of civilians killed in the region. Congresswoman, if our lawmakers won't restrain the president and reclaim the authority over war powers, what's left?
That's a great question, Rev, and that's why I not only voted for, but co-sponsored the House version of the War Powers Resolution. Look, the Constitution is clear that the founders wanted Congress to declare war. We do give the president the authority to act when there is an imminent threat to the United States, when we're under attack, when there's a threat to our national interest. But we have seen no evidence that there was an imminent threat. We have seen no plan for what comes next, for how we are going to prosecute this war in a way that leads to a decisive victory that has the least casualties, but more importantly, that will put Iran and the Middle East on the path to long-term peace. I think there's no disagreement that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, which is one of the rationales that we were given. And yet the Pentagon's own analysis showed that the strikes that the president did last year put any effort to get a nuclear weapon behind at least 2 years. So that's not the real message. The president has said that it was regime change, and yet we have seen regime change from external forces without a strategy in place on the ground usually does not end well. So I think he cannot act after 60 days without congressional approval. I think you are starting to see members of Congress at least ask the right questions and classify briefings. But I am hoping that the congressional majority takes back its job, does its job and takes back authority in approving any further offensive action.
Now, just a quick follow-up. Do you really think that President Trump's inner circle is telling him that a large-scale war will oust Iran's regime after a short or extended U.S. military campaign? Or does he have other motives here?
I don't know, Reverend. We had a classified briefing. I can't tell you what we heard there, but I didn't hear a coherent rationale for why this attack happened last week. What changed? What was the imminent threat? We didn't hear anything about it. We've heard the president himself say that the individuals they thought could take over are now dead. So I don't know what the rationale is. I don't know what the goal is. I don't know what the exit strategy is. And that's the point. He also did not make any kind of case to the American people about what our goals are and what success looks like. And so I don't know what he's doing there, but we need to have answers pretty quickly.
Now, pivoting to Homeland Security, which is no longer under the command of Kristi Noem, who was fired as DHS secretary this week by President Trump. Democrats had been calling for her removal for months over her handling of the president's immigration operations and the violent tactics employed by ICE and Border Patrol. Assuming a Senate confirmation, her successor will be Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin, who many Republicans expect and some Democrats hope will be a steadier hand in leading DHS. What do you expect, Congresswoman?
Well, I certainly hope he will at least know what he's doing and how to run the agency. But what I don't want to see is more of the same. We have DHS agents and ICE and Border Patrol who are out of control, who have created a public safety crisis in our communities that have left people dead, including over 20 people in 1 year who died in their custody. And we've seen American citizens who have been snatched and deported, but we aren't getting answers on just how many, who, and where they are. too many people have disappeared off the streets, and it has created a culture of fear in our streets. And we can't continue to have these masked agents essentially kidnap people with no due process. And if we get that under the new secretary, then nothing really will have changed except the face of this public safety crisis.
The world commemorated my late mentor, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, today and yesterday. I joined hundreds of people Friday in Chicago for his funeral, as did former Presidents Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and former Vice President Kamala Harris, all of us who spoke in the remembrance. Take a listen to President Obama.
Jesse didn't just speak to black folks. He spoke to white folks and Latinos and Asian Americans and the first Americans. He spoke to family farmers and environmentalists. He spoke to gay rights activists when nobody was talking to gay rights activists and blue-collar workers. And he gave them the same message, that they mattered.
Congresswoman, hearing Barack Obama's assessment of Reverend Jackson's message, where are we as a nation in his absence?
You know, first of all, my condolences to you on the loss of a friend and a mentor, and it is a huge loss to our country as one of the last remaining leaders of the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s is not with us anymore. And I think it's critically important that today, as more people are alive now who weren't alive then and don't fully understand the history of what the civil rights movement was fighting, and that is the over 300 years of the impact of slavery and Jim Crow. Jesse Jackson was fighting his entire life to ensure that the promises upon which this country were founded are true for everybody, regardless of your race, your religion, where you were born, how you work, how you love, how you worship. And we made progress because of leaders like him and you, and yet we are in the midst of one of the worst backlashes to that progress under the Trump administration, dismantling the progress that we have made, not just over the past 40 years or 50 years, in some cases, 100 years. And the danger now is we have fewer and fewer people who were alive during Jim Crow who can be firsthand witnesses, at the same time that we have an administration that is trying to whitewash this history, take it out of our schools, take it out of our public spaces in our museums. And you cannot know where you are if you don't know where you've been. You don't know how to move forward if you don't know how we've gotten this far. And so I am worried that if we continue to lose our leaders and not continue to tell the stories of the progress that they made and what they had to overcome to do it, that history is not only doomed to repeat itself, but this backlash will take us back, 50 to 100 years in many ways.
Now, your state, Virginia, is in the midst of its early primary season. That election is in about 5 months. Early voting just started, and we are in the midst of seeing what will happen in Virginia in terms of the voting process. The voters are taking up an amendment, in fact, that just cleared a state Supreme Court challenge to redraw the state's congressional map heavily in favor of Democrats ahead of November. It comes in the midst of a wave of partisan redistricting, largely at President Trump's insistence, or for Democrat-led states in counter to it. What are your thoughts on this?
You're exactly right. What this amendment is for in Virginia is to level the playing field after Donald Trump bullied Republican states like Texas and Missouri into doing mid-district redistricting to, in his words, find him more seats. Now, redistricting is not new. Last cycle in 2024, the Democrats were 4 seats away from taking the majority. North Carolina redistricted and took 3 seats alone through redistricting. And as a result, even though more Republican incumbents lost in the 2024 election than Democratic incumbents, we came up short in the majority. That tight margin was the difference between the big law passing and the largest cuts to Medicaid in American history, the largest cuts to SNAP benefits in American history, and all of the chaos that we have seen that Congress has failed to stand up and do its job as a check on this president, all because North Carolina redistricted and leveled and changed the rules in the name of the game, in the middle of the game. Now Donald Trump is doing it again. Virginia is giving its voters the opportunity to respond and say, we want to level the playing field. But unlike Texas and Missouri, it only happens if the voters say it happens. We've shown them the map, and they get to decide, are we going to move forward and level the playing field and bring fairness back to the 2026 midterms? Or are we just going to let Donald Trump bully Republican states into finding him more seats?
Now, I'm out of time, but one last question. Your state's Democrat-led General Assembly just voted to require public schools to teach the facts about January 6th and what happened there, and really deal with it from a factual basis that many see as something that could be done or duplicated around the country. They feel that the kind of messaging that has been in the public square is something that must be dealt with fairly. Do you agree with them that such a measure was necessary?
I think we have seen efforts by the Trump administration and his allies to again, whitewash our history and try to repaint what happened on January 6th as just a peaceful protest. But when you have Capitol Police beaten, in some cases nearly fatally, when you see a noose and people going through the Capitol looking for Mike Pence and with violent intent, when you see a mob storm the Capitol, it is the height of a lie to say, well, that was a peaceful protest. So what this bill does is say we're going to present the facts of what happened on January 6th and not misinformation in our schools.
All right. Thank you for being with us, Congresswoman Jennifer McClellan of Virginia.